It's Mo. It is May 26th. It is time to do a book haul revisit. So this year in 2024, I'm looking back at 2022, which was the first year that I started my Arab spreadsheet, which is my recently acquired books spreadsheet, where I write down every single book that comes into the house. I write down where I got them, how much they cost, when I got them, if I've read them already, if they go on a collections shelf, if they go on my red shelf, if they get put in the basement, etc., etc. So I am looking at the hauls that I did from that year. I did a haul for every month to correspond with my Arab spreadsheet. I'm going back and seeing if I read those books. So you can check out the playlist listed down below of all the other months that I've done. The video that we're going to look at today is from May 28th, 2022, but I think we're looking at my April books in this video. And I'm a little bit scared, a little bit nervous, because it looks like there are two videos for April. So we'll do one now and one later. With these videos, I've also been including some little free library footage. It doesn't look like this one has any, so that's good. No need to skip anything. Let's see what I have to say. Oh my gosh. So it says that I acquired more than 60 books in April. So that's why it's split up, because that is a lot of books. Oh my gosh, it also says that my dad gave me a big box of books, so that means that I really acquired even more books in April, but those I don't do hauls for, and I keep on a separate page in my spreadsheet, so we're not going to look at those. I forgot to screen record. Let me screen record. Pause for screen recording. I always forget. Interesting. I talk about how those books are going straight to my basement box books, which I say if I ever do a basement haul, you'll know about it, which I am actually doing now. So I have been going through all the hundreds of books in my basement and talking to you about them. And this series with my 2022 revisit is kind of connected to that. So I will also leave the playlist for my basement box book project listed down below, and you can check that out if you'd like as well. Oh, I have to write this down too. Oh my gosh, I'm so out of practice. The first two books that I am talking about are actually unread, but they are not officially counted. They go off and in collections. They're two little comic book versions of classic sci-fi novels. So we have The Invisible Man and Dracula, and they're in these like really tiny, cute little editions. While I'm making these videos, I'm tracking what I've read, what I haven't yet read, what has been unhauled, what has gone in the basement, what has gone on collections, and then I'm also making like a priority read list of books that are unread but I really like need to read. And the whole idea of this is just to see how many of the books that I haul each month from 2 years ago I've actually read, and maybe also familiarize myself or re-familiarize myself with books that I like want to read. I guess all the books that I'm talking about first are from the Book Garden, which is one of my all-time favorite used bookstores in New Jersey, and the next two books are both Mary Robert Reinhardt mystery books. I was introduced to Mary Robert Reinhardt by Kevi at Say Kevi, and I'm so glad that I was, because I love Mary Robert Reinhardt, and both of these books are read. We have The Red Lamp, which I loved, and actually I should reread because it takes place in the summer. It is an epistolary novel told in diary entries, and I think they start in June, so it would be cool to read like one chapter or one diary entry a day. I will have to pull that off my shelf and think about it. I'm going to write that down. And then the other book is The Haunted Lady, which is the last of the Miss Pinkerton series. So the Miss Pinkerton series I've read two of, and I have one other, but it's like two novels which anchor the series and then a bunch of like short stories. I haven't read the short stories. The next book I got was Life Drawing by Robin Black. This is a literary fiction book about a couple who are going through a rough patch and decide to move to the countryside. I think the husband is a writer and the wife is a painter, and when they live in the city, the husband is prolific, and when they live in the country, the wife is prolific. I did enjoy it. The next book that I got at a Goodwill, and it was Rita Mae Brown and Sneaky Pie Brown, Claws and Effect. I can't remember what the Cat Cozy Mystery series is called, but it is a Rita Mae Brown who is known for her lesbian coming-of-age story. What is that book called? Ruby Fruit Jungle. I've never read any Rita Mae Brown because I haven't read any of her Cat Cozy Mysteries either, but she has like a very long, extensive Cat Cozy Mystery series that she writes with her cat. So I have not not read this one. I don't know where it is in the series, but it's funny because by this point I hadn't even started my Cat Cozy Mystery reading series. The next book is also unread, and that is Facing Mount Kenya by Como Kenyatta. I had to listen to myself say it. This is a nonfiction about a Kenyan experience. I think it is like a Kenyan modern classic nonfiction. I have not read this one either. I talk about how I had recently read Out of Africa and I was interested in reading more. Maybe this would be a priority. I don't usually put nonfiction as a priority, but I would love to read more African nonfiction and more African literature in general, and especially Kenyan literature because I'm really interested in the country of Kenya. The next book is read. It is The Devil in the Blue Dress by Walter Mosley. This is the first Walter Mosley book that I ever read, and I did really enjoy this. And then later we watched the movie with Denzel Washington. Walter Mosley is like a crime noir thriller author, American Black author, and I was super happy to get into his books. And since then I've read at least one other. I've read one this year, so it wasn't in this same series. This is the Easy Rollins series. It was in another series that he has, but I do really like his new take on noir writing. I talk about how I've been wanting to read more Black mystery authors. That's still true. If you have any suggestions for Black mystery authors, I would love to hear them. And I also talk about how I don't like the cover. I did actually unhaul this book because it was the movie cover, and so I am keeping my eyes out for another edition of this book. Another unread book is Tomorrow's Tomorrow, The Black Woman by Joyce A. Ladner. This is a nonfiction essay collection. I think that was written in like the 70s. This is one that I picked up with a big collection of Black authored books, and I was just really excited to read all of them. I have not read this one yet, though. Essay collections definitely are something that it takes me like a long time to read. Right along the same lines is Blues People by LaPaul Jones. This is another sort of essay collection about blues music, and it is unread. It's Leroy Jones, not Lee Paul Jones. The Negro experience in white America and the music that arose from it is the byline, so that sounds pretty cool. Another that I got in that same collection, somebody must have donated their like huge Black experience collection to the Salvation Army, which is cool, but this is Religion, Racism, and Reparations, a Black Manifesto by various authors. And this is another essay collection about life in America and how that experience is for Black people. And this was also like written in the 70s or something. This one is also unread. The next book is also unread, unfortunately, and that is A Mercy by Toni Morrison, and this was found at the same time at the same Salvation Army. This is, I think, like the last in a loose trilogy that she has. I've actually still only read Sula by Toni Morrison. That book was amazing, and I'm actually thinking about rereading it soon, but I have been collecting every Toni Morrison I've seen since then, so I'm happy to get this one. This is one of her later books, but unfortunately I have not read it. We're getting back on track. The next book is read, and that is In Love and Trouble by Alice Walker. So I read that last year for the TBR Spin. Alice Walker is a little bit of a controversial author because of her stance on trans people and things like that, so I do not agree with her politics, but I do really enjoy her writing. This was, I think, the second short story collection, or possibly the first that I read by her, and some of the stories I really enjoyed and some of them I didn't. We're doing okay in this video so far. The next book is unread. Maybe I spoke too soon, and that is Running in the Family by Michael Ondaatje. I read The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje last year or the year before. I have not got to this memoir of his life in Sri Lanka yet. It is one that I would really like to read. The next book is a collection or a reference shelf book, and that is Do Cats Need Shrinks? Cat Behavior Explained by Peter Neville. So this is unread, but doesn't count towards my read books. And mostly I got it for the cover because the cover is kind of amazing. I mean, this is a book that I could see myself reading at some point, and I would like to see like what the tone of this book is, but that's the first one we'll put on reference as opposed to collections. All the next books seem to be from my very local used bookstore, which is the Asbury Park Book Co-op. Weird. So I talk about that there was an NYRB book that I picked up but isn't in this haul, but it was already read, so I'm just going to mark it down as read. I think it was either To Each His Own or Seasons of Migration to the North, but I don't know why I didn't put it in this haul. Maybe because it was already on my read shelf, but I did read it, so it is read. And the next book is also read. That is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. So this is the first in the Murderbot series, and I think I've read 4 or 5 in the Murderbot series since then, but this one is read and this one is unhauled. The next book is unread, and that is Malmuth by Sarah Perry. I got this at that local used bookstore, and I recently did a try a chapter with it, so I did end up keeping it, not unhauling it. So I will leave that try a chapter down below so you can hear more about Malmuth by Sarah Perry and my thoughts on the first chapter. The next book is also unread. That is Amistad Maupin, The Night Listener. This is a standalone by Amistad Maupin. I've been working my way back through the Tales of the City books by him, and I really love the Tales of the City books, but I've never read a standalone. I would be interested in reading this one, but unfortunately at the moment it is unread. The next book is unread. Now we're tipping the scales towards unread in this video, unfortunately, but that is Ecotopia by Ernest Callenbach. This is a book I think written in like the 60s or the 70s, and I think it's kind of what it says on the tin. It's about a young man, a journalist, who travels to an ecotopia, and then obviously the idea whether it is actually a utopia or not. I think this should go on the priority list because this is one that is very short and is a classic novel, something that I would be really interested in and something that I might really love, but not one that I like gravitate towards all the time. So I should put this on the priority list, but unfortunately at the moment it is unread, and now we have 10 unread books and only 7 read books. So I'm getting a little nervous for this video, and it's making me very, very nervous for part 2 of this video. Oh, hooray. The next book is read, and it is Please Look After Mom by Kyun-Suk Shin, and this was a favorite of mine. I read a few years ago. I heard about it on Matthew Sharappa's videos, and I really, really enjoyed it. This is one that I think about a lot, and I would love to revisit at some point. The next book is unfortunately unread, and that is Love by Toni Morrison. This is often like what I think my next Toni Morrison will be. It's about a entrepreneur at a shore town who creates like a black town, like a black utopian kind of environment, and it sounds really, really interesting. The next book is also unread, but it is another Alice Walker book. I found so many great Toni Morrison and Alice Walker books at this time. It is a hardcover that I got, I think, at a library sale, and that is Now Is the Time to Open Your Heart. I don't know if this is short stories or a short novella, but either way, it's very, very small. I have not read it, unfortunately, but I am still super interested in it. The next book is also unread, but it is our first unhaul, and that is People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks. I also have heard really, really great things about Geraldine Brooks from Matthew Sharappa. I know he loves her books. This one is the most appealing to me of her books, but unfortunately it was also in that try chapter that I talk about, and I did unhaul this one. It still sounds kind of interesting, but I just didn't need to keep it, and I am trying to pare down some of my TBR. If I ever become interested in it again, I'm sure I can find it, but for now, unhaul. The next 2 books are both by Banana Yoshimoto, and one I have read and one is unread. I read Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto and I really liked it, and actually there's a short story at the end of Kitchen that I read and I really, really loved. Those are the 2 Banana Yoshimoto, well, I've read more since then, but those are 2 of the Banana Yoshimoto books that I've read and really enjoyed. I didn't love Kitchen a lot when I first read it, but it really grew on me, and now I do really like it. The other book is NP, which is unread, and that one also sounds really interesting. That could be a good priority read for me. The next book is read, getting back on track. The next book is Disquiet by Julia Lee. Disquiet is about a young woman living in Australia who has to return to her family house suddenly, and when she does return unexpectedly, and maybe not the most welcome. She has to confront her brother, who has recently suffered a severe loss, and her estranged relationship with her mother. This is a very subtle psychological horror book in many ways, and then there's also a part that's like very gruesome. I really enjoyed this short horror novel. The next book I have also read. It is The True Deceiver by Tove Jansson. This is an NYRB book. I read this one a few years ago. I really, really loved it. It's about a brother and sister who kind of make ends meet and like make their way in the world by hook or by crook. They're not 100% scamming people, but they're not 100% honest with people either. It was a really interesting literary fiction kind of psychological tale, and I really, really enjoyed that one. That one's one that is probably due for a reread as well. The next book is another Rita Maria Brown, and it is Ruby Fruit Jungle. I have not read this one, unfortunately. It is a queer coming-of-age classic. I have it on my shelves. I definitely want to read it. Maybe this year in June, but somehow I doubt it. And that was the last book from this haul. I kind of lost track. I have to go back and double check. I will put the correct numbers here, but it looks like the read were 11, the unread were 14. I had one reference book and 2 that went on collections, and then 1 was an unhaul. And 2 of the books appeared in a triad chapter, so definitely check that out. So that is 11, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 29 books total. How am I going to get through all the other books in the other video? I don't know. This was not the worst, not the best, but not the worst. I mean, having more than half of the books unread is not my ideal. So my first priority read from this video is going to be Facing Kenya, and then the other 2 are fiction. I'm going to try and read Ecotopia and NP on that priority reading list. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned here. Let me know if any of the unread books I should prioritize. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.